Hey guys, and welcome back to the Total Football YouTube channel. I hope you're all well and I hope you're all filled with hope and excitement for the upcoming season after a brilliant opening weekend of Premier League football, unless you're a United fan, because you probably hated it. Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? But anyway, that's what we're going to delve into today. We're going to look at each fixture that took place over the weekend, give you things that we learned from each game, and also give you things to maybe look out for each team over the course of the next couple of weeks. So starting off with the Friday night kickoff that was, of course, Crystal Palace against Arsenal. And Arsenal look very much improved, don't they? I was scared before the season, but they certainly mean business. Wasn't the most comfortable of wins, but I think they'll like that. Of course, Palace made it hard for them in the second half, but the first half, Arsenal looked really promising and looked really good. Jesus looks like one hell of a player. First off, I'm sure he will bag goals for him. But what I most was impressed about was the defence in that second half. Palace really came at them. Of course, we're 1-0 down. Of course, the second goal came later on in the second half. Palace really started to come at them in the second half. And we saw something from Arsenal that we didn't see at all last season. A bit of grit and determination to hold on to a lead when times get tough, when their back's against the wall, in the hostile atmospheres that we know they struggled with last season. And they coped brilliantly. Saliba at the back looks really good, really promising, and it could be a very good season for Arsenal. Now, as for things to look out for Arsenal in the next couple of weeks, I'd say it's just their fluidity in their front line is going to be so strong, and once it clicks, they could really dominate and destroy some teams going forward. You've got Jesus up top and Nketiah on the sidelines as well to come on. You've got Saka, Erdegaard, Martinelli, even Smith Rowe or Vieira to come in behind. I just think their fluidity in their front four is so good, and Arteta, once he gets them going, and once they're clicking, they can destroy any team. Now, as for Crystal Palace, of course, their season will not be defined by one of the games against the Big Six this season, especially after the disrupted pre-season that they had. It was not easy for Vieira to get his players training suited to the system, etc., etc. But of course, I think one shining light was Cheick Doucouré in midfield. I think he looked very good, very promising, and I think to look out for, I think it is him, because he gives the front line the licence to go play, to beat teams, to go at teams, as they did in the second half of Arsenal. They did go at them and try and attempt to put it back, which of course wasn't the case, but I think against teams more of their level, they will find success, and I feel they will be a team to watch this season. Now on to the next game, which is Fulham versus Liverpool. This took place at 12:30, the early kickoff on the Saturday. And the question we were all asking before the season has been answered emphatically. Alexander Mitrovic can do it in the Prem. He will give Fulham a big chance, of any chance of them staying up this season. He absolutely bullied that Liverpool defence, and quite frankly, he made the best defender in the world look average. Really was something we haven't seen before. The pressing, their intensity was insane. I think that's something to look out for, whether Mitrovic can keep up that high scoring form and whether Fulham can keep up that high intensity over the season. And if they do, they have a real chance of staying up. Now we'll touch on Liverpool. It was a bit of a weird one, wasn't it? They seemed a bit off, didn't really hit the levels that we know they can reach. That was until Darwin Núñez came on, who changed the game, ran around like a headless chicken, causing havoc, but it ultimately worked for him. Got his goal, and a very fortunate assist, we'll say, but got his goal. Good little flick. Lucky how it went in, but still got a goal. I think if he can keep up that form, it will help Liverpool massively. Now, I know I've said a few negative things about Liverpool, but we do have to remember it's not their fault and that the pitch was dry. Fuck's sake. Now, I'd say to look out for Liverpool, it would be their response, because of course we've seen many times in the past they'll drop points somewhere and then they'll go on some massive run. I can see that happening again. And also whether Darwin Núñez can cement his place in that starting lineup, which I think he can. He needs to keep out his scoring form, whether it's another appearance off the bench next week. But he needs to cement his place in that starting lineup, because I think we all know he is better than Firmino, and he gives them a real chance of winning and probably saved them in this game. I also do want to give a massive shout out to Harvey Elliott for Liverpool. Came on for Thiago when he came off injured at the same time as Núñez came on, and he changed the game just as much. He added some width into that midfield, which allowed Salah to drive inwards, and it really helped him out a lot. So I really want to see him get some more game time as well. Now onto the 3 o'clock kickoffs that I wasn't able to watch because I was away working for my beloved Concord, which, by the way, go follow Concord Rangers on socials. I'll leave a link in the description since I mentioned them. It's what I do outside of this YouTube thing. I'm a sports journalist. I work at Concord, help run their media team, and it's really fun. Just go follow their socials. It really helps. And while you're there, follow my socials as well, because they're right there. It's Instagram, Twitter. Just do it. See, I'm getting good at this YouTube thing now. Look at that. Now, Concord's result for me was one reason why it was a perfect day. The other was this club right here. What a performance. I've gone back and watched, obviously, since I missed the 3 o'clock kickoffs, I've gone back and watched them. I've seen people's responses, stats, of course. But I must say, before I go into this game, what a banger of a shirt this is. It's not released yet. It's definitely real, before you say anything. Definitely. But not released, unreleased third kit. I quite like it. It's definitely better than our away kit. But anyway, I've gone on a bit of a tangent now. But we look so good. And it's weird to see, because we look scarily good. Going forward, we look deadly, so fluid. And I know you're going to probably point out the obvious fact that we did go 1-0 down in this game. I don't care. The response was instant. It was brilliant. And Kulusevski, by the way, what a bloody player he is. We saw it last season, but people were like, oh, can he do it for a full season? He can. He's a serious baller. And even, can I just add, we scored 4, beat Southampton 4-1, without Kane and Son being involved in a single goal. And they said we were a 2-man team. Oh, wow. Some people. Anyway, I'd say my thing to watch for Tottenham will be, once Kane and Son do inevitably get firing, just how many chances and how many goals we will actually score. It is scary. We will be one of the top scorers in the league this season. And that is why I put them second. Now you know the reason. Now with the Saints, I predicted them 18th in my predictions video. And I think I had a right to be worried. And they just looked so lost out there all game. Especially Salisu. Which, I don't know what he's doing. Seriously, what is he doing? What has he even tried there? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. I'd say one thing to probably watch out for Southampton, because they did look horrid this game. And I think it's how long Hasenhüttl gets given before the pressure's on. Because they looked so lost, looked so disjointed. Nothing was really working. Let me down in the comments below how much time you would give him before obviously the pressure gets piled on, because they can really struggle this year and changes might have to be made. Now on to Bournemouth against Aston Villa, and Bournemouth might actually have a chance of staying up. I know that contradicts everything that I said last week in my video, but I will stick to that obviously, because it's what I said. I'll stick to my guns. But what they did, they've gone a bit more direct with Kiefer Moore and Solanke up top, and it worked, and they got the victory. And if they do that more, just grind out the results, they have a chance. They do have a chance. But I must say, Villa were very poor. Very, very underwhelming. We'll get into that. But I think one thing to watch for Bournemouth, I'll mention now, is how the defence copes for the rest of the season. Especially with Marcus Senesi coming through the door from Feyenoord. Of course, Man City next as well. Interesting to see how they cope. I don't think Villa really created much in the game. So we'll see how they cope against a team that really creates much and when their back's against the wall. Now with Villa, and as I mentioned just a minute ago, really, really underwhelming. I think this might be the big L that I take in my predictions video. I predicted them 7th, of course, and it looks really bad. They look like they lacked ideas, which of course is the opening day, so of course a lot can change. There's 37 games left. It's probably the best thing to get these issues out of the way early on, but it don't look good. And yeah, stuff needs to change. And I'd say the one thing to watch is who they go for up front. I think it's interesting that he started Danny Ings over Ollie Watkins. Well, there were talks of Ollie Watkins maybe leaving this summer beforehand. He's staying, obviously. But I think Ollie Watkins suits the way they play more than Danny Ings. And it'd be interesting to see which one Gerrard picks Now on to Leeds versus Wolves, and I told you guys, Leeds will be fine. They'll be okay. They've bought into Jesse Marsch's system so much. It simply had to work, didn't it? If it didn't work, stuff was going wrong, and they were probably going to go down. But it looks like it has worked. The players they brought in look really good, and I'll say my player to watch for Leeds this season is Brendan Aronson, who of course got the winning goal at the weekend against Wolves, and he looks so good. He just looked like he was like the missing piece of the jigsaw of everything they were doing. Just kind of fit everything together, and yeah, it could be a really promising season for him and Leeds this season. Now with Wolves, and I wasn't really surprised with what I saw. As I said in my video last week, it screams out average, and I don't see where they have improved or anything. Of course, Raul Jimenez missing through injury. I don't know much of the injury, and of course, if he is out for a while, it could be a massive loss. And of course, getting rid of Connor Cody, their club captain, to Everton, also a big loss. So I think the thing to watch is how they cope with. Of course, they signed Nathan Collins, so I think they already preempted the Cody loss. But without Jimenez, they could really struggle without a striker, and it'll be interesting to see how they line up for the start of this season. Now onto the final promoted team left to talk about. Nottingham Forest, of course, they got absolutely humbled and dominated by Newcastle. And I must say, Newcastle are a serious threat this season. They limited Forest to barely any chances. I think they failed to have a shot on target all game. And I do think that was more to the brilliance of Newcastle. Fabian Schär with easily goal of the weekend. Easily. Which seems to be his trademark goal. I don't know if you guys remember a similar goal he scored against Burnley a few years back. It's very similar. If you don't know, go Google it or some sort. You'll see the similarities, because it is scarily similar. Now, my one thing to watch with Newcastle is whether they keep Callum Wilson fit. As I said in my prediction video, if they lack a reliable striker, and I said that's what they miss if they want to push on to Europe, like I know they do. But if Callum Wilson stays fit, they can. Callum Wilson is very good, and he looks to fit this system, because he played with Eddie Howe at Bournemouth. Howe gets the best out of him. If he's fit and firing, they can definitely push on for it. Now with Forest, I do feel slightly bad for Nottingham Forest. It's a very tough game to open their Premier League campaign up, and Newcastle just were flawless in this game. But they do really need to just get that first goal over the line, get that first win as soon as they can. Otherwise, it could end up being a really, really tough season for the Reds, especially with this corner tactic. What's going on here? Seriously, need I say more? Anyway, my thing to watch with Forest will be how long it will take all these new signings to gel together, because they need it to happen quick, big time. Otherwise, they could end up being left behind their rivals in the fight for survival. Moving on to the later kickoff, it was between Everton and Chelsea, which Chelsea came out on top with through a Jorginho penalty, and that's just about what happened, really. It was quite a boring snooze fest for most of the game, unless you're Yerry Mina and Raheem Sterling, who got a little too close for comfort with each other. Yeah. I think you're thinking what I'm thinking. Anyway, for Everton, my one thing to watch is how much they will miss Godfrey through injury. Of course, my prayers do go out to him. He sustained looked like a serious injury to his ankle, so hopefully a speedy recovery for him. Because they brought in Connor Cody, as mentioned just now. So it'll be interesting how that develops and how much they will miss him, because the defence is what they struggled with last season, and it's something they really need to improve if they want any chance of staying up. As for Chelsea, I'd say it's their front line, because it didn't really seem to click, maybe as Tuchel would like in that game. Of course, it will take some time. People know that. Of course, Sterling coming into it, but I do think they should play Sterling on that left hand side coming in and play Havertz through the middle. I think it suits their front three more, and that is how ultimately they will get the best out of them too. Moving on to the Sunday fixtures, Leicester-Brentford was first, and yeah, Leicester could really struggle this season, especially if they lose the players that they are rumoured to be losing. Of course, Fofana could still go, Maddison could still go, Tielemans could still go. They look to be cruising at 2-0, but to lose how they did, it really is a good sign. I'd say to watch out for their transfer business. Of course, if the likes of Fofana and Maddison do go, they need to replace them urgently, especially this late in the transfer window. It could get very, very worrying for Leicester. And I will also point out, Kieran Dewsbury-Hall looked very promising in midfield, scored a beautiful goal, and I think he will be one to watch this season to kick on from the back end of last season where he really shined in that Leicester midfield. As for Brentford, it was a really good point for them on Sunday, especially the position they were in 2-0 down, to put it back 2-2, get a point first day of the season, in a season where they're just looking to avoid second season syndrome, I believe. And yeah, a very good way to get it. Very good way to pull back from 2-0 down, get a 2-2. Yeah, very good point for Brentford. And I'd say one thing to watch will be when Mikkel Damsgaard does eventually come through the door and how key he can be for Brentford. And they could even finish higher than I said they will. And they could... They will. I think they will be fine. I don't see where second season syndrome really hinders them, because I think they still look as good. I may have just really jinxed myself there. Just to say. Oh God. Moving on to the game that was on at the same time, the game I was mainly watching. United versus Brighton, and I called it, didn't I? I did call it. United just look so poor. They really are going to struggle. This team and squad just is not good enough, and I don't know how. How is McFred still a top 6 partnership in the midfield in 2022? How has this been allowed to happen? Eriksen in the false 9 clearly doesn't work either, which of course wasn't ideal because they had Martial out through injury, which obviously wasn't ideal, and Ronaldo was benched, who wasn't ready apparently, but I think his face there kind of tells you the story and sums it up perfectly. I think the one thing to watch will be whether they do get in a midfielder that they really need, because they're linked with, I think, Adrien Rabiot from Juventus, which it's not good enough, is it? They can really struggle this year. And just, please, for the love of God, save United fans' eyes from seeing McFred in the midfield again, because it's really bad and really disjointed. Brighton absolutely tore it apart in the midfield, and we'll move on to Brighton now. Looked very good and looked a lot like last season, even with losing their best 2 players, which is a great sign for them. Their first ever win at Old Trafford in the Premier League, and it looked easy for most part. It was very much deserved. It'll be interesting to see how they do this year, because I think many people, including myself, predicted them slightly lower than where they finished last year. I think that will be what to watch with them, is how good they can do, because they don't look like they've got worse losing their best two players last season. Caicedo in the midfield looks unreal, absolutely unreal, perfect Basuma replacement, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do this season. Now finally, it's the one we were all waiting for this weekend. Can Haaland really do it in the Premier? The answer is, of course he can. Why do people doubt him? The guy is literally a robot. Honestly, the guy is a phenomenon in the making. He just is going to score 20 plus goals easily. I don't get why people doubted him. Of course, which it's painful for me because I didn't put him in my FPL team. And they have Bournemouth next. Now my thing to watch with City will be how many goals Haaland really can get. Like we could see something out of this world while he's in the Premier League, and it is really scary. 20 plus goals is a definite target for him this year, maybe even more. He looks so scary and so good, and City and they'll just get better and better each time. City at understanding how he plays and how to integrate him into the system, and yeah, it could be really scary for all teams this season. Now for West Ham, and not much you can really say about West Ham from this weekend. You can't really assess them as they just never had a chance, did they? City toyed with them, they really did. It was not a pretty watch for any West Ham fans, I'm sure. But I'd say one promising sight was Gianluca Scamacca when he came on. I think he looked promising, and I definitely watch out for how that dynamic of whether West Ham pick between Scamacca or Antonio up top, or even both this season. Because yeah, it could be a headache, but a painful headache for David Moyes to make. One that he didn't have last season. Of course, Antonio was the only striker, and they now have that quality in depth. So it's a painful headache for David Moyes to make this season. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So there you have it, guys. There's my recap and what we learned from the opening round of Premier League fixtures. Do hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Also to subscribe to the channels, it does help a lot. And also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I upload so you do not miss it. So now, until next time, goodbye.